So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to another anniversary album review of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector. And today I'm joined by Nick Zeno and JC, Rock and Metal Reviews. Nick, how are you, man?
Good, Hector. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, what about you, JC?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Good. So, we're here to talk about an album that turns 30 this December 6th, and it's Bush with 16 Stone. Here you have the record. This is the remastered version, which is one of the first vinyls I bought back in 2020. And I gotta say, it's one of my loudest records. This record sounds great. It's remastered, and inside it has all the lyrics and a picture of Winston, which was Gavin Rossdale's like dog at the time. So yeah, this came out December 6th, 1994. They actually recorded this album in January of 1994. And I don't know about you guys, 1994 was a great year for alternative rock.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. One of the best.
Like when I take a look back now, 30 years at all those albums that we got at those times, I'm like, we were blessed.
Yeah.
Those were great times. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter how much new music comes out. My favorite records are still the ones from the 90s and are the ones that I actually buy more on. Like if I want a vinyl record, I'll buy stuff from the 90s usually. Like almost all my record, like I think like 90% is 90s stuff. Uh, so yeah, so first of all, let's start with our impressions of when we listen to this back in the day. So let's start with JC. Take us back to when you first listened to Bush.
Mhm. It's kind of funny because I don't think I bought this album, but I remember the singles and going back to listening to it again, I noticed there were a lot of singles. It's almost like half the album.
Five
And I
singles.
didn't realize it because there were like so many songs that I recognized, and there were also like the deep cuts which I didn't recognize. So I like that part of it. I bought this. I didn't buy this album, but I bought the one after it. I think it's called Razor Blade Suitcase that came out 2 years after this. I still have that CD up there somewhere, and but it's a really good album. It has like a lot of singles, and like I kind of forgot how popular it was. Kind of like it's kind of like that second wave of grunge where like after like Kurt Cobain died, there was like other bands that came out. I guess this was one of the big ones. It's kind of like that middle point between like the new metal and like the end of grunge.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's definitely a really great album. Yeah,
yeah. It was Bush and Silverchair. I remember,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
both bands got a lot of comparisons with Nirvana. I think more Silverchair because he was blonde, but Bush did get a lot of like comparisons, and also because Gavin Rossdale is hot.
Good looking man.
Yes, and Nick, people are gonna start first Nick Hexum for 311 Rossdale, but I have Gavin Rossdale in my list of man crushes.
Yeah.
So Nick, what about you? Did you listen to? I know this uh, came out a year after. Oh no, actually, no, it came the same year that Oasis put out their debut record as well.
Yeah, definitely maybe came out in 1994 as well. And yeah, it was I remember it well when the Bush records came out, this one and Razor Blade Suitcase. In Canada at the time, they were known as Bush X here in Canada because there was a band in the 70s called Bush already.
Oh,
So Gavin Rosdale and the singer of the band Bush had to work out a deal for them to be able to just be called Bush here in Canada and drop the Bush X. So that's how we all knew them. And when this came out, I was in elementary school when this came out. When this came out in '94. And the thing about when I was in elementary school, the lines were drawn, right? You were either an Oasis fan or you were a Bush fan. And obviously, I was a big Oasis fan. A lot of the kids in my
what?
class, yeah, I'm a fan of both, right? But when you're in seventh grade, eighth grade, everybody's gotta pick a side in that argument. So, but I remember this just being like a huge, huge record all over the radio, all over music television. It was such a huge record for like all the singles. You have like 5 singles on there that were all amazing. And then, you know, pretty much just everywhere, all over radio and all over television. So I remember them being called a Nirvana ripoff, but they weren't quite British as well. They didn't really have a British sound either. They sounded too American for British audiences, and they were too, you know, so they fit right in with the American audience. So I remember when this came out, it was just absolutely huge.
Yeah, actually, the band got more popular before in the States than in British. A lot of people in British didn't even know they were British.
Yeah.
And if at the time I didn't know that. I thought they were actually at first. I thought they were from Seattle.
Yeah.
Back then, before I thought every band was from Seattle. I thought
all the good ones.
Seattle, like and then I'm like, no, there's different places. But yeah, I remember I bought this when it came out. I don't know if I bought it in December 1994 because I remember the first time I saw the video for Everything Zen when, you know, I don't know if you guys remember maybe when MTV had the MTV like Buzz videos.
Yes.
Did you remember, JC?
I don't think so. What was it? Is MTV what?
Buzz videos, like they took a video
MTV Plus
or Buzz Worthy.
Buzz, yeah. I think I might remember, yeah.
Yeah, and they had the video, and I remember I listened to that song, and I think the first thing that really drew me to that song was the lyric, like, Mickey Mouse has become a cow, and I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Mickey Mouse has grown up to be a cow. I always thought that was like a weird lyric. I still don't know what
some weird lyrics, yeah.
Yeah, that's something with Bush. I think he wrote that. I think that's why they had that Nirvana comparison, because Kurt Cobain wrote some weird lyrics as well, and I think Gavin Rossdale went with that same theme that it's like a stream of consciousness, and sometimes you don't know what the hell he's talking about. So
yeah.
Plus, they were both apparently good looking, so that's where the thing like conclusion to people. So yeah, I think this album, even though it came out in 1994, it came out in 1994 at the end of the year. So like if we were reviewing this today, we would probably not make our top albums of the year.
Yeah.
It'd be on the 95 list instead.
I actually thought it came out in 1995 because it came out December, but it was heavy, like almost all the singles came out in 1995. And I remember this album was huge until 1996 because my head was featured in the movie Fear with Mark and Reese Witherspoon.
Classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
the line where he hit himself. So
yeah, he's beating his chest. Yeah.
his chest. And obviously Glycerine was huge for them and still is huge. So let's talk, we can talk favorite track singles, and obviously there's some interesting deep cuts on this one. So JC, what tracks do you love from this record?
Okay, out of the singles, I would say my favorite is Glycerin. It's because I haven't listened to it in a long time, and I was listening to it today, and it's just one of those songs that you could just sing along to. Like I used to remember, I must have like listened to it on the car radio when I was driving around back then, because I did a lot of driving back in those days. And it's just a really great song. It's just I like the melody of. But as for the deep cuts, I like track number 3 called Bomb, because this one kind of reminds me of Nirvana, but I thought it was like Nirvana, but from the In Utero album, like something along those lines, like not early, like Nevermind from Nirvana, like more like that, like noise rock, like a darker sound. So I like track number 3, Bomb. I like track 6 called Body, because it's like a blues rock. It almost reminded me of like ZZ Top, but like a grungy, like noisy version of that. So I thought that was cool. And I like the last track called Ex-Girlfriend. It's only 46 seconds long, but it's like this Green Day punk rock song. So yeah, it's pretty cool, because it's just like I thought it was going to be like some kind of like extra filler track, some listening to it and I see it's 46 seconds. I'm thinking they're gonna do something like Pearl Jam used to do, just put like noise or something. But no, it's actually like one of the best songs, even though it's like really, really short.
Thank God
Like
it's
that last song. Yeah.
yeah, and that song is like simple. It's like you only call me when you're down, and there's like the noise of cow. It's like a really fun. It's a fun track. I don't know if they ever play that live.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Green Day, but I mean, it's just like it's just a fun track. I liked it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, cool choices. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I was going to agree about Ex-Girlfriend. When I was really surprised, I wasn't familiar with that song, so I was really surprised when I heard it at the end of the album because I'm like, this is way too poppy for Bush. This is definitely not as grunge as it usually are. So that was a really pleasant surprise because with this record, I was definitely familiar with all the singles because, like we were saying, the singles make up half of the record. It's really all you're really familiar with half of it. I knew some of the album tracks, but not as much. For me, my favorite track on this record has always been, even going back to when I first started back when I was, 11 years old, has always been Come Down. Come Down's always been one of my favorite Bush tracks. Absolutely love that. Obviously, Glycerin is like this classic. The thing about Glycerin is it has very much like what I was thinking about listening to the album again today. It has like almost like a Smashing Pumpkins Disarm kind of feel to it a little bit too. And you think about
Yeah.
it, like it becoming
The
this,
violence.
yeah, like the violins and the orchestration. And then you think, would this song become a radio hit today? Because there's this whole song, there's no drums. There's never a point where the band kicks in or anything like that. It's just Gavin and it's just the guitar and the orchestration. Like it makes me wonder if this type of song would be a hit on the radio today, like it was today. It's still a great song, but like, people seem to need that instant gratification nowadays with every song. So it's like this is like it's one of those like real deep cuts that's just like became a huge hit. So I love that. And then I found in general like the album tracks to be a little bit weaker than the singles. Like the singles are, I think, obviously of higher quality than some of the album tracks, but Machine Head, Everything Zen, Little Things, those are all my favorite tracks on the record.
Maybe songs like the monkey.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell? What monkey?
What is going on?
Yeah. So I think Glycerine, if it would come out today, it would be an Imagine Dragons song.
Oh no.
And they would totally screw it up. But yeah, so yeah, great pick. So for me, like you, Nick, Calm Down is my favorite track from the singles. And I was reading that was the first song that Gavin Rossdale actually wrote.
That's a good first song.
He wrote it in 1991 when he was with he had like another band. He had like a more like pop oriented band because he was in the music video business since the 80s, but nothing was happening. And then when he decided I'm gonna do like rock alternative, he got a lot of flack before. He put, I think, I'm trying to see Interscope. I think was the label that got. But yeah, it wasn't like an overnight success like some people might think. So the song was the first one that they wrote. Calm Down, and I love it. And I actually saw Bush live in 2000. Was it 19? Yeah, in 2019 in Miami when I lived there. They were celebrating I think the anniversary, and there was also 25 anniversary, and it was with live celebrating 25 of Freud.
That's awesome.
Oh, both bands.
It's a good bill.
They were both good, but actually I think Bush was more energetic, and they played almost half of this album. And they played some deep cuts. They played the song Swim, which is great, and they played Body, which I like that track because I like how Jay-Z said, and I like the part where he goes like, "Will you come again? Will you stay friends?" I'm like, no, probably she. This was before when, funny days. So I thought that was good. I like all the singles, but I think out of the deep cuts, I really love Body. I love Swim. And I think Ex-Girlfriend is interesting because it sounds like a punkier song. Like it could be a pop punk song. And I think the song before it's interesting because the song before it, Alien, it's like a slow burn song, but it's pretty good as well.
Yeah.
But then they finish with Ex-Girlfriend to give you like a final burst of energy. And Glycerin is great. It's just, I think it's so overplayed now that I've heard it so much that I've gotten a little bit of Glycerin fatigue, but still a great track. Simple. I remember seeing Gavin play this song on and remember when MTV has the Beach House or something, and he was playing the song in the pouring rain.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And
Very grunge.
he was shirtless. Woo!
just the water dripping down his chest. Yes.
Only if we try to do that, probably we'll be like, put your shirt on.
Yeah. Nobody wants to see this.
Nobody wants to see you without a shirt. But yeah, great track. So let's talk about, like 30 years later, how has this held up? And your final thoughts on this record, JC.
Yeah, it definitely holds up. I think it was like actually a lot better than I was expecting because because the second album, Razor Blade Suitcase, it was like okay, like not something I usually go back to a lot because that's like the only CD that I have of Bush. But I thought this one was like a really like great debut. I thought it just even the singles and the deep cuts, I think it's pretty good. I think it's just a solid album. So I think yes, it definitely holds up very well 30 years later. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have Razor Blade Suitcase on vinyl as well.
Nice. Yeah, don't we?
It didn't have as much hits as this. We'll talk about that album when it turns 30 in 2026, I believe. Came out. It came out in
96. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
26, we'll probably talk about Razor Blade Suitcase. So what about you, Nick? How has this held up 30 years later?
I think it's held up really well. I think it is definitely the best Bush album. Razor Blade Suitcase does have some really good songs on it, but it's not as solid as this one. And it's funny because 1994, it was like after the death of Kurt Cobain, it was almost like this kind of restart of the 90s. Because in 94, you had Bush, you had the Green Day album Dookie, you had Oasis, definitely Maybe, Weezer, Blue Album. What was the other?
Collective Soul too.
Yeah, like there was just like a huge kind of influx of music in 94, and I think that Bush was like part of that movement, the kind of reinvigorated music. It just felt like 1991 was a huge year in the 90s, and then 1994 was another big year. And I think 16 Stone is like this like one of those classic 1990s albums that you have to listen to if you really want to know what the 90s were all about, especially that mid period in the mid 90s when all these bands were emerging. 16 Stone is among those classic albums that I mentioned.
Yeah, I think 1990 to 1995 were pivotal. And in 1994, you had also like a change because also you had Korn release their debut record. So it was like a shift in like what's going to be popular. Also, Weezer had the Blue Album. There were a lot of great albums in that time period. So for me, 30 years later, I think it's still their best album. It's really held up. I saw them live, and listening to these songs live were great. I also think if you're the type of Bush fan that thinks like, they're not worth anymore, me and Jace, I reviewed their last few albums, especially their last two have been really great. JC, remember their last albums, I think they've had a return.
Yeah, the last album was good.
Yeah, they're really still putting out good material. But yeah, I think this is just a classic record that it's never going to be topped. I think they have some albums that were overshadowed by other popular music, like Golden State from 2001. I think it's a very underrated record. So I kept on being a Bush fan. And he also did another band called Institute. Have you listened to that record for Institute?
I don't think so.
Check it out. It's basically Bush. It's him with other people, but he named it Institute at a time that they broke up. Really cool record. And I think the success of Bush was overshadowed because of Gavin Rossdale's good looks. It didn't happen to Billy Corgan. Oh, yeah. I'm not saying Billy's an acquired taste, but like when you have like someone that's like a model type looks. Sometimes the only thing that you would say, like, oh, he's good looking, but I thought he was I wouldn't say he's my favorite songwriter, but I also think that he got a lot of crap, and Bush got a lot of crap for like being Nirvana wannabes. And to me, they didn't sound like Nirvana. They have those like electronic guitars, but Gavin Rossdale and Kurt Cobain's voice are nothing alike.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Foo Fighters got the same comparison. Like when Dave Grohl came out, they were like, "Oh, the Foo Fighters just sounds like Nirvana. It's big guitars and big drums." And he's like, "Well, that's kind of like what I do, right?" Like, so yeah.
Yeah. So for me, this has held up as well. I think it's a very awesome rock record from the 90s. And I saw that on many publications, it's been put in the top 10 rock albums, not top one, not the, but it's in a top 10 of like records. So it's, when it came out, it got some good reviews and some mixed reviews, but over the years, it's gotten more love. And I think Bush has more acceptance. So we want to know from you, Couchers, what do you think of 16 Stone by Bush 30 years later? Comment what are your favorite tracks, earliest memories of listening to this record. And yeah, next year we'll come back and we'll talk about, because there's many albums in 1995 turning 30. I can think we already talked Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness already, so we're not gonna re-record that, but I'm sure we'll talk about Garbage.
Yep.
Next year. That's an important record, and I'll see what other records we can talk about. So please subscribe to my panel's YouTube page, Nick Sino. He does music. You're gonna have like what are you working on your end of year list?
Yeah, working on all the end of year lists, doing my best of 2024 tracks, best of 2024 albums. Going to do some year in review videos, and Spotify Wrapped came out, do something for that. And yeah, lots of stuff coming up to wrap up the year.
Yeah, I did my Spotify Wrap already, and my kids, there's some songs that are like, please, I assure you that I do not like Shakira.
Yeah. That's okay. You know what? She's got some good tunes too. It's all right.
So yeah, so good. And also, obviously, JC Rock and Metal Reviews. He's already got the first part of his top 40 albums. It's up. I just saw it. So JC, when is part 2 coming out?
Well, I don't know when you're posting this. If you're posting this on the 6th, or it's coming out on the 5th, December 5th. So I don't know if this is going to be out already, but yeah.
It's the future, people. So that video is already out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, so I'm gonna have 2, and then I'm gonna do my I'm gonna do rock albums, which will be, I have 20 listed of just rock, and that'll be probably like the week afterwards, and then I'll do like my worst albums, like after that. Yeah.
I always start with my worst album. Yeah, sure. I start with my worst, and then I go to the good stuff. So coming up for me this weekend on Saturday, I got my first installment of my top 25 albums. So I divided my top 25 into 5 videos. Every video is 5, and the last one is our top 5 albums of the year, and it's a video that I did with Señorita Sabrosura, and she gives her top 5, and I give my top 5. And it's really, this is the 3rd year in a row that we've done it, and it's cool because we usually have like different musical tastes, but for this top 5, we had for the first time ever one album in common, which you will have to wait for when it comes out. And also, next week I'll have my top 5 EPs of the year, and there's a few interviews that maybe I'll post. So that's what's coming up. So yeah, so Couchers, thank you for watching this. And today, December 6th, let's listen to some Bush 16 Stone loud. So until next time, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.